Today is July 5th, 2024. It is 9:43 a.m. in the morning, Friday. I am glad how yesterday turned out for us. Now, around this time in the morning yesterday, I was sad and I didn't really know if it is possible to turn the day better. And I made several videos yesterday at different times during the day to capture my emotion and thought process. And I'm so glad that I am making these videos because if not anything, I know that someday this can again become my own survival guide, because in 2018 I had a major health challenge, and there were many things that I did, including traditional doctors, where things were not really working through that, and then I tried lots of other things, and eventually, thankfully, things worked out. And this time, about 7-8 months ago, things happened, and it was very, very challenging. And since then, I started this path of Buddhism and learning other things, and something happened that where I was never into the paper books. I would listen to a few books, the audiobooks, and I used to jokingly tell my friend that I'm too lazy to read paper books. And I think now I have about, 15 or 20 maybe paper books, and I read every day. Not that that's the biggest change in me, but I think the part where I am, when I read something, I contemplate it more, and somehow it's more digestible or something. And I'm in my 40s, midlife, so I think the way I perceive things could be a little different than if I were in 20s. So this morning, I was actually thinking I'm going to read this book a little bit more and then make the video today, because I make a video every morning and I look forward to that. I've been reading this book, The Sun, My Heart. The concept of this book is, because I was actually thinking, why Thich Nhat Hanh named this book this way, The Sun, My Heart, because on a high level, it doesn't completely make sense. So yesterday I came through that section where all of his books, most of his books, I would say, actually, I think I have seen about 15 or so far, other than just one. I think all of them has this style, which I love. It has a title like this one here. It would say observer and participant, and then it goes on for like a page, and then there's another section title and goes on for a page, usually not much longer than that, and that actually holds the attention even for kids. So my daughter Alice, she's 8 years old, but she likes Thich Nhat Hanh books. So anyway, I read about 2 pages, and then I was thinking I'll read some more and then make the video. And I came across this section that I really wanted to think through and ponder over more. The chapter name is Cutting the Net of Birth and Death. And under that, the title is Mind Creates the Form of Reality. So as I kept reading, there's one section where he talks about the reality that we create for ourselves. So it's known from different teachings that we create our own reality, not only by how we react and respond with the people around us, but our thinking, feeling, the energy that we produce, um, that creates the reality for us. But this goes even deeper, where he says, some scientists proclaim that the properties of nuclear particles are nothing but creations of their own minds, that in reality particles have no properties independent of the minds of those observing them. So basically the proton, neutron, where this adds more detail before about that, the proton, neutron, electron, and in any kind of thing, like if I pick this cup, it says every day is a fresh start. I love these cups with good writing in it. Anyway, so because my mind is there, I am perceiving the cup the way I'm seeing. And for me to view this cup in certain way, I am creating those electron, neutron in certain way. So if my mind is not there, that reality is not there. I thought that was such an interesting concept, because if you think of it, somebody else might just see it as a regular cup, whereas somebody else might see this cup and they might be so inspired that every day is a fresh start. They might go start a big company, right? So it all depends on our thought process, how we perceive it, how we change the reality for ourselves. Because the line at the end of this section, he says, this implies that in the world of particles, the mind which perceives reality, in fact, creates it. So we know that our mind creates reality, our own reality, and it makes you want to think deeper. What else do we create, and how does the mind create all that? In a lot of the books, they would say it comes from our belief systems, and our beliefs are formed in our childhood, the way we grow up. I think it's beyond that. It is as we go from one life to the next, and our subconscious, and there is also a term called superconscious, which is beyond subconscious, is connected to the collective consciousness, the universe. So when we meditate, and in meditation there is 3 stages when we do more and more meditation. So the first step is meditation, second is concentration, and the third is insight. So more we do meditation, and we can concentrate better on a topic, and from that the insight gets created, which is a deep concentration, meaning this is where it connects to the collective consciousness or the universe's consciousness. And we sometimes get great ideas, we are happier, and we feel that desirelessness, how they would call it in Buddhism, where we reach enlightenment. And enlightenment doesn't mean that it has to be like Buddha picture here I have, and these are gratitude card that I've been putting for many months. Sometimes I do them daily, sometimes here and there. So enlightenment doesn't mean that we become Buddha and other times we are sad or something. There could be things that are called mini enlightenment. My husband used to believe in Buddhism, a long time ago when we first met. He still believes a little bit, but he doesn't necessarily follow it anymore. But now I became more like a Buddhist. It's funny because it's okay, people change and we have different interests at different times, we grow. So he used the term mini enlightenment a couple months ago, and then it resonated with me. It is that in everyday life, there are times when we are happy, very happy, that we feel like this is it, we don't need anything else, and the desirelessness, and we feel content, really fully content. And that can be achieved by meditating, or for some people it could be other things. It doesn't have to be meditation doesn't have to be just sitting down and doing focusing on your breathing. And Thich Nhat Hanh, in his books, he talks about any moment can be meditating moment if we are mindful. Like I'm making these videos right now, my body is calm, I'm speaking calmly, and I'm not thinking about anything else. And I'm just right here speaking, looking outside, and I'll show how the outside looks. I'm grateful that I'm sitting on a window in our house. And this is a picture of a Shiva, Hindu god Shiva, a tapestry that I got from Amazon a week ago, I think. And yeah, so it's that the reality that I was reading in this book. He talks about not only about creating the reality, a lot of it is about perception. I can't remember which books where I read, because I've been reading like many books at the same time, so it's hard to keep track sometimes which book had what part. But they're all, majority of them are self-help, how to create better, how to have better positive communications, and spiritual books. Thich Nhat Hanh, majority of the books are Thich Nhat Hanh, but there are other books I have that I've been reading. In one book, they mentioned that 90% of our perceptions can be wrong. So on the surface, when we hear that, I think at first, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm like, it strokes your ego. And Buddhism, they talk a lot about not having an ego, and then leaving that ego behind. And I think it's sometimes I'm able to, and sometimes as human, as a habitual thing, it comes back, and the ego comes back in many ways, which I didn't realize. Yesterday when I was reading another book, he talked about Marshall Rosenberg. He talked about when we judge something. In the book, he mentions about he read something about what Krishnamurti said, and right away he thought, how is that true? And that's a judgment, and that comes from the ego too. So simple things like that. So thinking about ourselves and changing our perceptions are important. And a lot of time, the first thing is because of ego, we don't want to change our perception because we think that we are always right. And our hunter-gatherer nature from the past, and fight or flight response, because of that, we get into the proving that yes, we are right. But instead of that, what this suggests is observe an event, observe a communication without judging, without blaming. just the way I started thinking about, actually, I just started thinking about it as I'm talking, and I'm glad that I'm making these videos, because I think when I make this video, when I talk about this, new reality emerges for me. And if anybody watching this video, if you are going through some challenging times, if you are in midlife, 40s, 50s, I would highly encourage for you also to make videos. If you're not comfortable doing public, make private. And if video is not your thing, do journaling, or just talk about these things with a like-minded friend. Sometimes we have friends, but not everybody is into these things. Not everybody encourages these things, and it's okay, because they can't really relate to these things the way we do. So because new realization comes, because I have been seeing it through myself as I'm making these videos. Sometimes when I'm making these videos, a new realization comes to me. So anyway, the realization that just popped to my head, and to me that's an aha moment for me, even though it may sound crazy to some, or weird, but I'm not afraid to any judgment or anything in these videos, even though they're public. So I think to make myself as an observer, which I read about a week ago, but I didn't really know how to do it. I think I have to do it, and I'm going to try that. It's like an object. When I say an object, meaning if I am this mug, the coffee cup, I can only observe what's going on around me, but I can't necessarily judge. I can't blame. I'm just there. Yeah, and I paused because I wanted to ponder over it. And that's a good realization, because sometimes we know what needs to be done, but we don't know how. So that's knowing how, because we know how. If we know how, then chances for us to follow through and do it would be easier. So I'm glad that this realization emerged, that I'm gonna think myself as a coffee cup. Which I did not read in any of the books. It's just as I was talking here, it came to my thought. Because several of the books I read and have been reading, sorry, my nose is a little runny. I don't know where my napkin is. Sorry about that. Anyway, several of the books that talk about observing, not only in Buddhism, but other books too, self-help books, observing without judging and blaming, because all of that comes from our mind. All of that is our ego. And when we can have those outside of us, not carrying it with us, then we can find inner peace. Because ultimately, if you think of it, everything that we do is for our happiness. It's not that a Buddhist monk is the only one who is trying to reach that enlightenment, the contentment and desirelessness. But we are too. We are looking for contentment, and that's why we keep doing what we do. And we think that there is only way to reach that contentment. Only one way to reach that contentment, the way we know. And that perception needs to be broken. And in this book, sometime in the beginning, like some chapters, actually, as I was reading, I thought this was actually a little different book for Thich Nhat Hanh than the other ones I have read. And he explains what he tries to do is he kind of tries to help ourselves to break the pattern of the way we are normally habitually thinking. Because and I like, initially actually when I was reading, I was like, why is this book so different? And then I was not so much into it, but then I liked it because it's almost the concept that I use sometimes, that which is from Abraham Hicks, where if you are driving 80 miles to the left, all of a sudden, if you have to drive 80 miles to the right, you can't do that, right? Your car has to slowly come to the neutral zone or slow down, and then you can go on the other side. So similarly, if we want to change our thought pattern, if we are thinking on this left direction our whole life, and we are in our midlife, and all of a sudden we tell ourselves, no, that's not the right way of thinking, start thinking this way. We may do that for a day, we may do that for half a day, 2 days, and then we might feel like it's exhausting or it's difficult, and then we'll go back to our old pattern. And sometimes we'll go back to our old pattern without even knowing. It's that subconscious, it's that autopilot taking over. So it's very important to first, from that way of thinking, to break that pattern of thinking, because learning a new concept a lot of time is about unlearning the old concept. Because especially when they're similar, if we don't unlearn the old and we have that set in our mind, then we will not be open to learn the new types of thinking. So I like that book because he kind of tries to break down the pattern of our old way of thinking. He asks these questions. He makes you think more that like how we create the reality. The mug example that I was giving, that one person might think that it's just a mug to drink coffee of. Another person might find this message so inspiring that they would start a new company, $1 billion company, just from the same coffee mug. So they are creating their reality from that. They're believing something more, which connects to their old belief system, and then the new reality is just formed. So it's important for us to just ponder over this and take positive actions, because ultimately I've been reading and learning a lot about thinking, feeling, action. I kind of call it as a triangle. That's my own concept, thinking, feeling, action. But out of that, what I figured is that you can push yourself to think positive and push yourself to feel positive, and sometimes we fail, and sometimes it works, and sometimes we fail. But positive action is actually more important, because action is what drives the thinking and feeling a lot of time, because they are all in a loop. So if I'm feeling sad, and I could try to push myself to feel better, but if I go and help a poor person, or if I go and do a volunteering action, which is a positive action, that will generate that good thought, the positive thought in my mind, not only in my mind, but the people that I'm helping. So it kind of multiplies, and it would create positive feeling. And not only that, excuse me, I might do that, excuse me, again in the future, so it repeats itself in a good way. Plus, I might be inspiring others to do the same, take another positive action. Excuse me. Dale Carnegie talks about in his book, this is a book that I listened to many times, and then I bought this book a few days ago, how to win friends and influence people in the digital age. The original book was How to Win Friends and Influence People from 1937, I think. They updated with this part in the digital age where they cover how relations are formed in this age when there is social media and things like that. In this book, I think, it's just my opinion, if not anything, one thing, the most important thing I think is that leave others a little better. In the chapter 6 Ways to Make a Lasting Impression, leave others a little better. So the concept in this is, he talks about whenever we are exchanging a communication, and not only by talk, but by a text, by a like on Facebook or something, we are always, the scale always tips. We are either making someone feel a little better or a little worse. It's never neutral. So, and he talks about that it'll never be that we can always do each and every action thinking about that, because then it'll become very challenging for us and very exhausting. But if we normally can think about it most of the time, our communication will get better and we will spread peace. He doesn't talk about peace, but I added the peace from my Buddhism. So where I was going with that is, in Dale Carnegie, he talks about that leaving others a little better. I think the concept I was gonna say, actually on my screen some texts are coming, so I got a little distracted, I'll be honest. So that's why also my train of thought kind of slowed down. Yeah, he talks about leaving others a little better, and I think the concept that I was gonna say was, sorry, I just keep getting this text. This person is like a lot of text. I have to next time maybe turn it off, especially when I'm making the longer videos, because I was in a good train of thought. I just have to train my brain too to make sure I don't get distracted, right? Because this is what we are talking about, because there will be external factors, but it's remembering ourselves, the things that we want to do. So living others a little better, I think it was with the positive action, but if it was a different thing, I will, in another video, I will capture that later, is that remembering to do that positive action. Okay, actually now I remember, because I have been doing a lot of this because I want to be a good example to Alice, my daughter. She is 8 years old, and a lot of the books that talk about good parenting is all about we ourselves being the model, right? So kids learn by seeing more than they learn by listening. So like in Dale Carnegie, it's one of the example that I was saying, living others a little better. I think in every action that I do in the last couple of days, at least, I'm not always successful, I'll be honest, but I have been thinking that when I do this, is that something that I want Alice to learn from me? And that is kind of keeping me in check. And I think finding that in ourselves is important, like what works. So in my case, my daughter is my inspiration. I do things, I try to do a lot of good things for her to make sure that from this challenging situation where I'm trying to transform myself with all these books and learning and doing things is so that hopefully someday I can inspire her that when things get difficult, there are always going to be two ways, one easy way and one hard way. The easy way will be easy right away, but it won't be good in the long run. But the hard way would be very hard, and there will be times that we would want to give up because it is so hard. But that is what makes a long-lasting life change, makes us good, makes us spread peace and world peace, joy, happiness, harmony. Because our life is short. We come in this world for a short time, and then if each of us, we can do some good for the future generations and even for the current generations, then life is worth living. Because other people may learn from us, other people may do good in the future, and there will be more peace and positivity in the world. So anyway, I spoke for a long time in this video today, and I take a few deep breaths and finish this video and get into some of my reading. Sorry, I gotta go find a tissue. Sorry about that.